Welcome to Small Arms Solutions. Today we're looking at probably one of the most impressive guns that I found at SHOT Show this past year. LWRCI International has done some work with PCCs, but pretty much limited to the 45 Auto, and that was less than a positive venture with that one. That one had gone through a lot of issues for as far as accuracy and reliability. I don't think that really ever was corrected to the way that people would have expected it to come out of LWRCI, but they've got it corrected good enough, and people are still buying it. They're pleased with it. That was one of those guns where it was just looked so beautifully made, but then when you actually started to shoot it, the first issue I had with it was in reliability, and then after that was accuracy. When we got it reliable, the thing was shooting pretty much minute of barred door, and it probably had a lot to do with the way that operating mechanism worked. They wanted to do their own PCC, or pistol caliber carbine. So what you see here was introduced at the SHOT Show is the IC-9, or individual carbine 9, which is a 9mm. Now, what you see here is basically a derivative of everything LWRCI. You have your lower receiver, which has the exact same ambidextrous controls. Everything is the same as you would always know, but we're chambered in 9mm. We're going to go over some of these details. Now, when this was introduced, it's introduced in three different ways. First, you had a carbine, which was a 16-inch, it was perfectly legal for non-NFA. Then you had a SBR 8.5-inch, which required a tax stamp, and you also had an 8.5-inch pistol, which is what you see here is with a pistol, and this one happens to have a pistol brace on it. And this was the one that I had requested to be shot. They do black, flat dark earth, they do olive green, they do Patriot brown as well as tungsten gray. I prefer my black rifles black, so this is the one that I had requested. So now let's take a look at some of the specifications on this, because we're going to start getting really interested when we start getting into the operating mechanism. So we have 9x19. This particular one's an 8.5-inch barrel. Now, this is the cold hammer forged barrel, which LWRCI does in-house. They're one of the few companies in the industry who does their own cold hammer forging. They also do nitride finished, and this is also a threaded barrel, which we're going to get into in a little bit. It comes with a thread protector. This one does not come with a skirmish sights like the other one does. I did not really ask why, but this one did not come with any backup sights. We have a light weight of 4.1 pounds and a length of 22.5 inches. Now, yes, it does. It uses Glock magazines. Now, when I first heard about using Glock magazines, it sort of gets me a little bit concerned. Now, why is that? Of course, Glock magazines are the most popular in the industry. There's certainly no question. But everybody who's done a personal protective carbine or any kind of submachine gun that uses Glock magazines, there's always been a couple issues. Now, the first and foremost issue was compatibility. A lot of the pistol caliber carbines that I've shot over the years through many manufacturers had a compatibility problem with not only non-Glock magazines, but with Glock magazines. The original Glock magazines, the Gen 1 magazines, did not have the steel liners, so they would swell when you would load them. Well, when you try to load them in most of these PCCs, they would not even fit because they were so swollen that they wouldn't fit into the magazine well. We also had found this with some of these PCCs with the Magpul magazines as well as the ETS magazines. They wouldn't even fit in the magazine well. The next and probably the most significant problem was holding back in the last shot. The follower on the Glock magazines is very, very light, and you have a very small area where it engages onto the follower on the magazine to engage. Many manufacturers have had problems with 100% reliability for as far as bolts locking back in the last shot. In fact, there have been several companies, including JP Enterprises, who gave up on that idea entirely and don't even put bolt catch on their PCC. So that was one of the things I was very interested in seeing how this PCC would do was with the Glock magazines. So part of the testing that I had done was I tested it with Glock's Gen 1, 2, and 5 magazines. We also tried ETS magazines and Magpul magazines. And to my surprise, with the exception of one failure to lock back on a Gen 1 magazine, and I had several Gen 1 magazines, by the way, every single one of them locked back. I was able to get every magazine in the PCC, and I was able to get it out. Now, did all of these drop free when you hit the magazine release? No. Again, these magazines are not all created equal. They're not all made the same way. The frame on a Glock 17 or Glock type pistols are much larger. They're easier for them to drop free. These PCCs are not designed that way, so you do have a little bit of an issue with magazines. But this particular one, I had no issues with any feeding or any removal or installation or locking back, with the exception of that one magazine. MSRP on this one is not inexpensive. You're looking at a $2,000 PCC here. So we're going to get into some of the more interesting features of this thing. And again, we talked about this being a derivative of the LWRCI IC family of weapons. Now, going to the back here, we have an interesting aspect here that we've not seen before in LWRCI, the use of a hydraulic buffer. Now, we're going to take this thing apart, but I'm not going to be taking that out because this thing uses a hydraulic buffer with a flat recoil spring. That flat recoil spring gets caught on the buffer retainer pin, and I had a hell of a time getting it out and getting it back in. So just take my word for it. We have a flat recoil spring and we have a hydraulic buffer. Why would somebody want to use a hydraulic buffer? When you have a blowback type 9mm like this, you get quite a bit of recoil on it, and it climbs quite a bit. So the use of a hydraulic buffer will mitigate, and it did mitigate some of that recoil that you would find with a blowback type operated weapon. This does have an M-lock handguard. You only got 2 slots on here, so you don't got a lot of room to put anything on it. This being a PCC pistol, we were not able to put any kind of vertical pistol grip on. In order for you to put a vertical pistol grip on this, this needs to be a registered SBR, or it needs to have a 16-inch barrel. So we just put the mag pull rail covers, protectors on here. So the fire control group, again, this is all the same. We have the ambi bolt catch, we have the ambi safety, we have the ambi bolt release, we have the elongated trigger, we have the trigger, which is nickel boron plated, so it gives you a little more of a smoother trigger. What's also special about these upper receivers and lower receivers is they are forged receivers. We have coin forgings, which are struck and heat treated and struck again for precision dimensions, accuracy, and superior surface finish, which means anytime something is forged, you have material that's placed in it and it's basically pushed together. It's forged together. This is done not once but twice, and it basically increases the strength and, of course, the accuracy of the dimensions, which won't have to be machined off later on. So this is a major benefit. It probably costs a little bit extra money to have them do that, but it is well worth it in the end. So now we're going to talk about probably what I find to be the most interesting aspect of this gun is the operating mechanism. This refers to what they call a ring-delayed blowback. Now, when you have a 9mm submachine gun or PCC, there are several different types of ways to delay the actions. Roller delay, gas-operated, lever delay. And then you have radial delayed. You have several different types of ways you can delay it. Now, why do you want to delay the opening of the action? When the cartridge case fires, the cartridge case expands to the walls of the chamber. And you have to have your pressures drop down lower so that can contract back down and it can be easily extracted and ejected from the chamber. In a normal direct blowback operated system, that you have the massive weight of your bolt, a massive weight of your buffer, a heavy recoil spring, and even a slightly assisted by the hammer spring to keep that bolt closed long enough for those pressures to drop so it will open up and you won't have any failures to extract. So that's why you have all this massive weight on a blowback operation. When you switch over to a gas operated, now because you're using the gas to operate the action instead of the weight, you're able to have a significantly decreased weight in your bolt mechanism and your recoil mechanism because it's being controlled by the gas, not the weight. What they came up with was referred to as a ring-delayed blowback. What that means is inside of the chamber, you have 2 rings that are cut in the area of the cartridge case. As you can see from the photograph that I'm showing you, this is a picture that I was able to take just with a camera taking a look down the barrel. So you can see that there's 2 rings on there. Now you're also going to see a photograph of the fire cartridge case where you're going to be able to see the 2 rings where the cartridge case is expanded into those ridges of those 2 rings. What that does is when the cartridge case expands, that brass goes into those rings on the chamber, and that causes it to stick there longer. And it takes longer for that to contract back down for it to be pulled out. So you're having more of your pressures being released before the actual extraction of the operation takes place. So this is probably very unique. I've never seen anything like that done before. So I was really interested to see how this would actually work. We fired well over 500 rounds out of this PCC. We did have some malfunctions. Now, the malfunctions that we did have were not due to the PCC. It was due to ammunition. This particular 147 grain ammunition I had was from a reloader manufacturer who does reloading, and the pressures on that were not high enough for it to cycle properly in a PCC. They work fine in a pistol. We switched over to a factory Remington subsonic, and we had no problems after that. But we fired about 500 rounds out of this thing, with the exception of ammunition-related issues. We had no failures whatsoever. I did notice that there was definitely a lighter in recoil. Now, when you look at the carrier still has very similar weights in it you do to a standard like a Colt 9mm SMG. It's very similar in the way it's designed. You'll see it has the big spring pin, and it does have the large tungsten weight in the back. So it doesn't appear as though they've decreased too much of the weight of the mass of the carrier. Now, looking at the buffer, the hydraulic buffer, there could be some additional weight on there. I didn't actually measure that. But we have a combination of issues here. Now, with the Colt 9mm pattern, the higher ammunition you put in there, the higher the rate of fire you're going to get for the cyclic rate. With this one here, you have an additional delay, which is caused by those rings, which in theory would slow your cyclic rate down even with higher pressure ammunition. Again, without having one on fully automatic and not checking cyclic rate, we really can't tell that. But we can see in theory how the ring delayed blowback would affect reliability. Again, when you have a higher rate of fire because of higher pressure ammunition, your bolt's moving back that faster, and it very well could open up more prematurely with a much higher pressure round. So the ring delayed blowback, I thought, was probably one of the most interesting aspects of this. So we shot this both suppressed and unsuppressed. And of course, it's much more fun as far as this thing suppressed than it was anything else. But we're going to take this to the range and we're going to see how it shoots. Firing over 500 rounds, with the exception of that ammunition that we had that was not made to spec, we had no issues whatsoever. The sound suppressor we used was the GSL Stealth. Now, GSL it's relatively new to me because I never even knew they existed until the Estonia contract with LMT. And after I saw that was a military grade suppressor that was bought by foreign militaries, when I contacted GSL and I wanted to take a look at their suppressor. So I gotten a couple of the one that was for the 5.56, 7.62, and this one. So this is the one that we used. This is a standard baffle can, which is what we see mostly still for the 9mm calibers. We're seeing more of the reverse flow for the rifle calibers. So hearing safe, absolutely, with subsonic ammunition. Again, this is not a cheap PCC. You're looking at almost $2,000 for it. They're relatively new on the market, so they're not really available. LWRCI has been innovating for quite some time. They're able to stick with their standard type platform, and they're now moving it forward to some different calibers. With 9mm, they've gone to 45, 5.56. They've gone to 6.5 Creedmoor, 7.62. They're definitely opening up their their number of different offerings that they have. All combat grade weapons. There's absolutely no question about that. The quality is out of sight. There's no machining marks on here, no chatter marks. You're getting a very high end rifle. When you compare this to some of the more guns like Colt and guns like that, where guns are really made to be just tools, you do see more of those chattering marks on there. You do see some of the mismatches in upper and lower finishes, where you don't see with these. These guys take everything from the beginning to end. They're going top of the line all the way. But this one here was something that I was really anxious to get my hands on, just because of that ring delayed blowback. I've never seen anything like that, and there's no question that it does work. We also like to thank our friends over at Challenge Targets. We were using our Challenge Targets to do most of our testing with this, as you saw from the video. We do have a code SAS, so you can save 10% off of any one of their targets. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, please click like, please subscribe, and even better, share. Thank you.